friends, Jan at the Moline Library here. Today we're going to be making the yarn flowers that are part of the April craft kit for tweens and teens. In your packet you will find, in addition to the instructions, a little packet of yarn, a bead, and a piece of felt that has in it 2 embroidery needles and also a needle threader. You will also need a pair of scissors and a 4-pronged fork. Now you might think it's kind of silly for me to specify a 4-pronged fork, but there are in fact forks that only have 3 prongs. So keep that in mind. Go grab those and we will get started. You'll notice that one of your pieces of yarn is quite a bit longer than the others. It does not really matter what order that you use these yarns in, but just make sure that when you get to the end of each petal, you are not cutting off any of that extra yarn until the end of the program. All right, so what we're going to do is take any one piece of yarn and we are going to weave it. To do that, you're going to start by putting the piece of yarn on the fork so that the fork is kind of curving around towards you, and you're going to start from the far left and you're just going to weave it in between the tines like so, and then you're going to come back weaving it the other way, and when you've gone across and back, that makes one row. It's very important that you leave the yarn somewhat loose as you're doing this. You do not want to, for example, pull really tight like this as you're doing it. You want that yarn to be kind of loose. Once you've finished a row, you can kind of tap it down, but side to side you want that to be fairly open in the weave. And I will tell you why in a short time. So go ahead and just keep weaving until you have either 10 or 12 or however many you feel comfortable with. But make sure that when you do get to the end of your last row that you still have at least a few inches of yarn to work with. All right, so once you have your desired number of rows, and if you lose track while you are weaving, you can always go back and count the number that you have by counting how many are on the far side there. And once you're done, you're going to turn the fork over and it will look like that. You're going to take your needle threader and your needle, and in order to use this, what you do is you'll stick the needle threader through the eye of the needle, then you'll grab your yarn and you'll pull it through like so. All right, the next step is you want to take your needle and put it underneath the row of stitches on what is now the far right. This can be a little difficult, so I'll show you a couple of tricks. One of them is to kind of move your row of stitches so that it's a little farther up, because this part curves and this part is a little straighter. It'll be easier to get underneath if you're on the straighter part. And also, if you have those stitches kind of squished together, that will also make it a little bit easier. And you're just going to put your needle against the tine of the fork and slide it under, and then pull it through. And at this point, we're going to tie off that first little piece, that first tail that we left out. I'm going to give that a couple of times around. And then I'm going to cut off that first tail that we had fairly close to where the knot was. Just not so close that I actually cut the knot. And then we're going to go up and down for the other rows. Another thing that you can do if you are having trouble getting through the rows, if you can't make it all the way through, if you get about halfway through and you're stuck, you can always come up between stitches like that and pull it and then go back and finish. But if you have left your weaving somewhat loose, that will make it a lot easier. If you've pulled it really, really tight, it can be very difficult to get the needle between the stitches and the fork. So that's why you want it to stay nice and loose as you're weaving. And in fact, if you pulled it really tight, I found out when I was making my sample pieces, if you pull it too tight, there's even a chance you might break your needle. So be very careful of that, and that is why you do have 2 needles in your packet. So go ahead and just finish off with those last 2 tines. Well, that is not what I meant to do. I should have left this on the fork, but I pulled too hard and it came off. What you want to do with that last one is you want to come back through and pull it tight. So I apologize that mine came off the fork. I could show that the proper way with one of the next ones. But as long as you come back through, you'll be fine. And then before you are done, you're going to want to come back through the bottom of it one more time and pull it through, but leave a small circle, and then you're going to put your needle through that circle a couple of times and pull it tight, and that will make a knot. And then you are done with this, but as I said, don't cut off that tail just yet. So just go ahead and leave that on, and you are going to make 5 more of these. All right, I'm just finishing up my last flower, or sorry, last petal, and I'm going to show you what I should have done with that first one. So again, I've come all the way through all 4 of the tines and leaving it on the fork this time. I'm going to come back around, secure that, then slide it off the fork and go around one more time. And oh, my yarn's about to come off my needle. There we go. And come around and then just tie that off. If at any point you make a mistake, you can always just take it all off of the fork and start over again. You know, if something happens and you end up with not enough yarn or something else, you can always call me and let me know, and I can get you some replacements. So now we have our 6 petals, and you'll notice that one of them has a much longer tail. You'll also notice I didn't follow my own directions and I cut one off. Fortunately, it was not the longest one, because that one that is the longest is the one that we want to work with. So now that we make sure we know which one that is, we can cut the tails off of the rest of them. All right, so now we have 6 petals, and one has a nice long tail on it. And we are going to go ahead and thread one of the needles using that longest tail. And what we want to do now is we need to attach all of the petals together. And we do that by going through, essentially, if you can find it, the best thing is to go through where that bottom row was again. You don't want to come down and just like barely catch it or come too far up. But if you can see where that bottom row is and kind of go through there, that's going to give you the best lay on your petals. So we'll string all 6 together. I should have mentioned at the beginning, but there is kind of an obvious way that they curl around themselves. So you always want to make sure that you're putting them together so that they're all either curling in or curling out. I'm doing what I would consider to be the bottom of the flower, and so I'm having all of the petals curl towards me. So I'm seeing kind of the bottom side of the petal. And once we have all of them on, we're just going to go through one more time through each of them. Again, making sure that we catch through that bottom layer of stitches and not just kind of randomly catching the material anywhere. I did that once where I just barely caught the bottom and it just didn't work. So make sure you're kind of aiming to go through that bottom layer of stitches as much as possible. Right, and then once we have gone through all of these and we know that they're all nice and secure together, we are almost done. The next thing that we just need to do to finish this up is to get the bead on to put in the center. So now that I've gone through all of these, I'm going to bring my needle up through just one of the petals, doesn't really matter where, and then I'm going to put my needle through the bead. Again, if for some reason I gave you a bead that has too small of a hole or something just doesn't work, let me know and we can get you some other material. Or if you just love doing this so much and you want to make some more, I would be happy to give you some more material to make some more flowers. Just send me an email or give me a call and we'll get you set up. And I'm going to go ahead and go through that twice just because I want to make sure it's nice and secure. All right. And then on the back side, we'll just tie that off. And the easiest way, I think, to tie off any stitch is to go kind of through the material to make a loop. And then you bring your needle through the loop a couple of times, pull it tight, and you've got yourself a knot. And then we'll just kind of fluff out our petals a little bit. And you have a yarn flower that you knitted on a fork. And what are you going to do with this? Well, in addition to just looking pretty, you could put a safety pin through the back and wear it kind of as a little brooch, or you could give it to someone special in your life to wear it that way. You could string them together and make a little garland. Whatever you choose to do with them, I hope that you will send me a picture because I would love to see what you have done with these. You can send those to me at molinelibraryteens@gmail.com. You can also use that address if you have any questions or need anything else. I hope you've enjoyed making these yarn flowers to brighten up your April, and look forward to our May craft kit, which will have stained glass bookmarks, and you can make your own anti-stress squeeze ball, which apparently I need today too. So stay tuned, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.